quorum without me?
Looks like we will
Yes.
have,
Okay.
yes.
Good.
But you're good till what time?
2:45.
Oh, we'll get your heavy stuff at that time. Good. All right. I guess we're ready to rock and roll. Roll call, please, Cheryl.
Yes. Let me start here. Chair Delvo.
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Matt Schuler.
I'm here.
Alder Barb Dorf.
Here.
Jim Bloomreich.
Here.
Debbie Dean.
Here.
Kathy Hinkfuss, I see, has just entered the waiting room.
Okay.
And Melanie Parma.
Here.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Ready.
All right. Approval of agenda, please.
I'd like to amend the agenda, if
Okay.
I could.
Sure.
And I'd like to move up item number 12 to right after item number 1. The reason being because Alder Stevens and Alder Stoyer are working on that housing ordinance together, and they've called in Alder Stevens from kind of far away. And so if we could just after item 1, I'd really appreciate that. But I think
Okay.
it's good that they listen to the housing study first, if they're
Okay.
working on that housing ordinance.
All
So,
right. So right after, in regular business, right after number 1, we'll do number 12.
right, so I move to amend the agenda to move up item 12 to after item 1. You need a
Second.
Okay, second by Matt. A motion by Alderdorf and second by Matt. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now I move to approve the amended agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Debbie Alderdorf and second by Debbie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, amended agenda. Okay, we have minutes from September 8th. Everybody should have got those. Any questions? Any questions or comments in regard to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So
Bloomreich,
moved.
Second.
A motion by Matt, second by Jim, that approval of the minutes from September 8th. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Minutes approved. Regular order business, number 1, consideration of possible action to approve the housing study prepared by MSA Professional Services, Inc. A lot of good information. I read it yesterday. And there's a lot there. But at any rate, and do we have Becky Binns aboard?
Actually, we do. Becky is here. So if you'd like to just maybe turn it over to Becky, she can give you maybe an overview of the study at this point.
Yeah, please. First of all, motion to open the meeting.
Move to open the floor.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Barb Alderdorf and second by Jim to open the meeting. All in aye.
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 Motion carried. So we are in open session. Welcome, Becky. You did a lot of good hard work there. Wow. I read it yesterday, and there's a lot of information. Obviously, you guys did a lot of good hard work. With that in mind, maybe you could give us, in your own words, a recap of some of the key conclusions and recommendations, please.
Sure. So I actually put together a PowerPoint, if you don't mind if I go through that of some of the highlights of the...
Okay, sure.
That'd be great.
Yes, there was a lot of data in it.
Good
I
stuff.
tried to boil this down to a 10-minute run through. Green.
We get it.
Okay. All right. So Green Bay Housing Study. I'm going to go through a little bit about our planning process as we worked through the study, some of the key findings for which we built our recommendations on. And then I'm going to go through some of those recommendations. I won't go through each one, but just some of the highlights from each of the categories I put together. So what we really set out to do in this housing study was answer a couple of questions. So what data do we have? What kind of housing do we have? What kind of housing do we need? And then what should we be doing to get the type of housing that we need? And some of the concerns, some of the things when I sat down to talk with Cheryl and the rest of city staff, there were concerns about the quality of ownership and rental housing. There was a desire to bring new construction downtown. Some uncertainty about what the aging population wants and how that fits within the rest of the housing market. And then just what types of programs should we have as far as funding programs, as far as regulatory, as far as partnerships? What should we be doing to make this happen? So our kind of general process was we did a lot of data review. There was a lot of data from HUD, from ACS, data we got from the city, mapping data. So we did an analysis of that. We met with staff several times to talk about what their concerns were. And we shaped a community survey. We worked on putting that together with staff. So we did a community survey that had over 1,000 responses, which was just great. I was floored. That happened right when COVID started. We also did a Spanish version of the survey, which got 74 responses. So that was also great too. So we did the community survey to see kind of what needs were in the community, what concerns residents were having, what types of housing they were maybe looking for but not finding. And then we also did interviews with local housing experts so we could better understand the local housing market and its shortcomings. So we met with realtors, lenders, builders, landlords, nonprofits, et cetera, to kind of figure out what they were seeing. They were kind of our boots on the ground to kind of truth out the data that we were seeing, because sometimes we see data that might be questionable, and just talking to people in the community who are housing experts can help us get a better understanding of what's really going on. So those were an important part. Today, our RDA review of the plan, and then hopefully council adoption to really get some teeth to the plan to make it really implementable. So now I'm going to go through a couple of the key findings, things that really stood out to me. So the first one is that the growth is projected to slow in the city of Green Bay. So this chart showing Green Bay in gray. And then we also looked at, we created a secondary market. And the secondary market includes a handful of communities surrounding Green Bay to just kind of see what's going on, because we know that Green Bay is not in a bubble. We wanted to understand what's going on in the housing community in the region. So we looked at population. Green Bay's population was expected to slow over the next 20 years, but population in the region is expected to accelerate. We're anticipating about 30,000 people being added to the region between 2010 and 2040. Now, these projections, so they're based on if the status quo continues, this is what we can likely expect. But what I see is an opportunity here. So we're going to have approximately 30,000 people coming to the region with strategic investment in housing. You could shift these projections and capture some of those people who are coming to the area. So I think that provides a great opportunity. Their finding was that a lot of the city's workforce lives outside of the city. So about 70% of the city's workforce lives in other surrounding communities and towns. So there are people working in the community who are spending money finding housing that's maybe more appropriate outside of the community. So part of our charge was trying to figure out why is this happening? What are we missing in Green Bay, and why are people choosing to live in other communities? The next finding is about the aging housing stock. So generally, age is an indicator of quality. Older housing generally requires more maintenance, and if it isn't maintained, it can fall into disrepair. So we found our community survey results and our focus groups did indeed confirm that the housing is in need of rehabilitation, generally in older housing stock. So 58% of the owner-occupied units and 40% of renter-occupied units in Green Bay were built before 1969. So generally older. That also brings up some concerns about lead-based paint as well, especially for families and pregnant women. But then when we we pulled building permits for the city. We looked at single-family permits and also multifamily permits. There's been growth in new housing since the Great Recession, but permits generally seem to be climbing year per year. So there's been a great increase in alteration permits, which means people are getting back to that rehabilitation of the older housing stock. So that's a good thing that we like to see. Single family detached housing was generally increasing, with the exception of 2019. And then also raises of single family homes were increasing. So that was the replacement of older homes. There was a big permit jump for multifamily units in 2019. So things are generally trending in the right direction, though the supply is not being built as great as the demand is for that supply, which is a big issue. One finding so a big issue in the rental market is cost burden. So just for some background information, about just under half, 44% of the housing stock in Green Bay is rental units, and about a third of renters are severely cost burdened, which means that these households are paying 50% or more of their gross income towards housing, which is frankly quite a high number. And an interesting when looking at the surrounding communities, our secondary market is that cost burden is greater in Green Bay than it is in surrounding communities, although Green Bay does have the lowest median rent. The cost burden is existing primarily with renters who are in households below 50% AMI, and these are the households who are at highest risk of homelessness. So this really puts a great urgency on filling a need for these types of housing units. The chart I have on the left side of the screen is showing, so for each rent level we have, so I'm going to look at the second bar from the bottom. So for units that are affordable to households making 50% of the area median income, about just over 50% of the units are being consumed by households earning 50% AMI or less, which is appropriate. But just under half of those units are being consumed by households who are earning high. So we see this is an opportunity to better serve low-income households through income-restricted and subsidized units. And it's also showing a lack of higher-end rental units for those households who can pay more. So right now they're competing with lower-income households for this older, more affordable housing stock. And then this is a development example showing what it typically costs to build a one-bedroom rental. So land and construction costs, it's typically about $130,000 we're seeing in Wisconsin. And this translates into a monthly rent of about $1,300, which is not considered affordable for any households at or below 50% AMI. So in order to make new construction affordable, it generally has to be subsidized, or it can be an opportunity for those earning higher incomes, so they move out of competition for those lower valued homes and rentals. Looking at the ownership market, so the thing that stood out here, and this is true across Wisconsin and across the U.S., is the supply is tight. So within the city, just over half of the housing stock is ownership units. Currently, if you look at real estate data in Green Bay, there's a 3-month supply of single family units. And generally, we like to see a 6-month supply. That kind of indicates to us that there's a healthy balance of choice and supply. Mm-hmm. This kind of translates into, so looking at the price then of these single family homes and condo homes. So median sale price for single family homes and condos have increased by 28% and 42% respectively between and 2019. So this is just, again, a reflection of that very tight supply that can't keep up with demand. And I also want to note that while I'm not showing it in the slides, these prices have risen quite more quickly than incomes have. And this is something that is true across the state and something that is also true across the US. Incomes are just not keeping up with home prices and rent prices. Just looking at cost burden, generally we see homeowners are less cost burden than renters just because there is barrier to entry for home ownership. So 26% of homeowners in the city experience cost burden, which is not all that uncommon in communities to see a number. So other findings, related to 20 years, we're expecting about 15,000 residents to age into the 80 plus demographic cohort, and that's going to, they're going to have shifting needs for housing. Many of them will choose to age in place, but some of them will be looking to downsize and maybe move downtown or places that are more walkable and places with more amenities. Another finding, so there are just over 5,000 of UW Green Bay's student population that lives off campus. So students are competing generally for more affordable housing. So they're competing with generally those lower income households, which can generally be a concern. Some of the recommendations focus on working with the campus and making sure that the college has a plan for housing students. And then another finding is just about the number of owner-occupied homes that have been converted to renter-occupied homes. And we see this in a lot of college communities in the Midwest who have a lot of pre-war housing. So within Green Bay, there are about 3,400 of these units. And they aren't in and of themselves a bad thing because they do provide affordable housing options, but they can create concern among neighbors who are owner-occupied homes about noise and parking.
Sure.
And then I just wanted to include a map showing this is where approximately where those 3,400 units are located.
Wow, all over.
Yeah, all over, which I was surprised there's a concentration downtown, but I was expecting it to be even more concentrated. So those are just some of the things that stood out to me. There was a lot more in the report. These are things that stood out to me that really shaped the recommendations for them. So now I'm going to go into the housing gaps. So we calculated the number of rental occupied units and what those might look like on a per year basis. So these estimates, the conservative or lower end estimates are using DOA projections. So those are continues. And the higher estimates are using the growth rate for the secondary market in the communities surrounding Green Bay. So we're assuming we can get growth that's going to surrounding communities. So that's kind of providing a large range. What we found doing these calculations, so we're looking at about 140 to 310 rental units per year. And then I do a breakdown by price point. And then about 170 to 380 owner-occupied units per year. And those are also broken down by price point. Another thing we did in the plan was look at areas to target. So the lighter areas are showing areas in the community that are the highest priority areas for affordable housing. These are based on funding criteria for the low income housing tax credit program. So these are places that are within a certain proximity from libraries, parks, schools. And what I would argue, it just makes good planning sense to put people near these things. We also looked at areas around bus lines. So putting that affordable housing where maybe not everyone has access to a car, making sure that near a bus line. And then we're also showing where the current TIF districts are, which can provide some additional incentives to developers. And then, so looking at downtown, that was another area we mentioned in the plan. So as you guys know, there are a lot of catalytic projects happening downtown that are going to are already bringing people and businesses downtown. And this is something that I think you can, development is happening. This is going to bring other development downtown. It's going to bring more people downtown. We put together a map. So this map that I'm showing shows all of the surface parking downtown, which is probably not surprising to you all that there is a lot of it. And I know you've recently city-run ramps to try and replace some of this. So I think continuing to move. This is something that we talked about in a couple of the focus groups as an opportunity, just the sheer number. A lot of these surface parking lots are under private ownership, which is probably going to be one of the biggest hurdles. But if we can get past that hurdle, that's a lot of spaces that can be put to a higher economic use to bring businesses and to bring housing downtown. And the type of housing that we'd like to see here is either in a multifamily or townhome format. It could be owner-occupied or renter-occupied. And also senior housing, which is going to get seniors downtown near amenities into walkable places. So before I jump into the specific recommendations, I want to talk about just kind of the overarching goal that we put forth in the plan, outside of downtown, is just generally thinking about building healthy neighborhoods. And when I talk about healthy neighborhoods, these are neighborhoods that provide a variety of housing types, sizes, and price points. So people can, different socioeconomic, racial, different ages, everyone, it's a neighborhood that's open to a lot of different people, and also places where people can age in place as they go from one point in life to another. They don't have to leave their neighborhood if they don't want to, because there are different types of housing options. That have sidewalks and public amenities, access to transit, parks and open space, community gathering spaces, and something that I think Green Bay seemed to be doing well from talking to our focus group participants is having active neighborhood-based organizations. And that becomes a really key point in neighborhood cohesion and just kind of creating a mini social sphere within the larger community. And so I think focusing on healthy neighborhoods, this is something that these types of neighborhoods age well. They're things people want. These are things that were popular 100 years ago and things that we're seeing people want now. So these are going to be, having a healthy neighborhood, I think, is a good investment for communities, and it's also something that residents want. So I'm not going to go through every recommendation, but my plan was just to pull out one or two on each category. So my first under the recommendations for communication, the one thing I wanted to pull out was to create a standing housing community. So this housing committee can be the driving force to implement this plan. They can provide oversight and admin on any local funding programs, and they can do public outreach about the city's housing needs and programs. This is really, I think, the critical first step for most addressing the housing issue, to have a group who's dedicated to driving this issue forward and kind of rethinking it and reassessing year to year as needs might change. So then some initiatives. So these are things that the city is already doing, and just recommendations just to do more of these. So particularly, I'm just going to call it neighborhood associations. So neighborhood associations, identity and social cohesion. And I think these can to engage residents in planning efforts and develop, particularly when we're talking about diversification of neighborhoods. So if we're bringing in housing other than single family homes, painting a real picture of who's living in these homes. These are people that are working in our community. These are our teachers. These are, staff working at local retail stores. These are hardworking people. These are our neighbors. So I think that can be a really valuable thing to keep driving forward. A lot of recommendations for different types of regulation. Some of these looking at waiving or reducing development fees, particularly with affordable housing, to kind of encourage that and streamlining that process. The other one I wanted to call out on this page was establishing a rural holding zoning district for the city's undeveloped land. So this is something that came up in focus groups, is so land that's undeveloped. The zoning district that it might be in right now has a really large minimum lot size. So putting it in undeveloped land into a holding district until it's ready for development, and then placing it in the appropriate zoning classification to try and bring down that minimum lot size and encourage different types and sizes of residences. And then as far as funding, so the one thing I want to call out here is creating an affordable housing trust fund. So this is something that a lot of other communities are doing to serve various affordability issues. One of the other recommendations is to utilize the TIF one-year affordable housing extension. That's something that can be put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and leveraged there. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is also something that communities have been using as match for developers who are using the state and federal LIHTC programs. So that, if you can get that up and running, that can be a really great way to develop affordable housing, because that, as I showed in the development example, can be one type that's really hard to get to cash flow. So if developers can get financially, that's something that can make that a bit easier. And then the last category I have just about different partnerships in the community. So the one I wanted to call out here is meeting with working groups with major employers, convening annually to discuss any housing issues and initiatives that the city is undertaking to get their buy-in and see what their employees that they're planning to hire. You can get an idea of, salary ranges. What types of positions might they be bringing in? Interns, younger millennials who might want a different type of housing than someone with a more established career. I think that's going to be a really important conversation to continually have to figure out what those needs are, to make sure that if people are working in Green Bay, they also have some good housing options in Green Bay that might meet their needs. All of these solutions, all of these recommendations, it's really not, one thing is going to solve our housing problems. It's really a layer cake. So we're going to need to layer macro level, so policies, funding sources, partnerships, with micro level, streamlining a process for developers who develop affordable housing. It's a very problem to try and solve housing issues, as you probably know. So the solutions are complex. But one thing I really think it comes down to is just having that idea about creating healthy neighborhoods and communities. I think it really comes back to that. I think that's an important thing to keep as you move forward, keep in the back of your mind. How are we going to provide a variety of, at a really small level within our community for different people, and create places they want to be. So next steps, these are things I've already mentioned, adoption by council. So these are the two things I think will give the plan a lot of teeth and get you started on implementation. So adoption by council, and then creating a standing housing committee to really start driving the plan forward and figuring out what issues you want to tackle first. So with that, sorry, that was 20 minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
Excellent recap. Lots of good
Thank
input.
you.
I was really impressed with all those comments at the end by individuals. You did lots of interviews, so you had a lot of good input.
Yeah.
I guess this question for Cheryl and the mayor. So, who bird dog this? Who's going? Does this fall under on staff wise to start implementing some of these strategies?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the mayor, but I'm looking, I think our department would probably take the lead on this.
Okay.
Establishing that standing housing committee, I think will be a more comprehensive group of people, not just our department, but I believe we'll take the lead on that. Mayor, do you want to weigh in on it?
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that assessment. Certainly, our new director, when they come on, will take a major role in moving this forward. First, I just want to recognize our community and economic development staff, Cheryl and the whole team, and our past director, Kevin, for really pushing this forward and understanding how important this document would be for us. This comes up a lot in the community, just questions generally about housing and what to do. And my answer has always been more. Like we need a lot more housing. Yes. But this really helps us fill in the gaps and does provide us with a really comprehensive strategy in order to carry that out. One data point that I've been obsessed with since I first heard it was during one of Mayor Schmidt's States of the City several years ago, when he pointed out that Bay is roughly, geographically speaking, half the size of the city of Milwaukee. And when it comes to population, the city of Milwaukee is 5.5 times our population. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that we have that's kind of an underutilized asset is land. I mean, we really have an opportunity to get far more dense. That's no commentary on the collective intelligence of all of us on this call, but really, far more than what we're used to maybe in the city of Green Bay, while at the same time retaining all of those amenities that were mentioned. We need to, maintain open space. We need neighborhood associations that, provide significant quality of life to residents here, all the things that we're used to, but we need to be comfortable with multifamily units in different places all across the city of Green Bay. Again, I just think this is going to be a really helpful document in plotting forward what our
Yes.
future looks
Yes.
like. Because those first couple slides are a little terrifying. We don't want to see our population stagnate in the way that it's predicted if we don't change course. And unfortunately, in spite of all of the progress that we've witnessed over the last couple decades, all of the redevelopment in our downtown and on the river that all of us recognize and really appreciate, that is not enough. It's not nearly enough to grow our population in the way that we need to do it. So I just would encourage members of RDA and members of council and staff and members of the community to really take this document to heart and get serious with some of those recommendations. So I look forward to participating in that in the weeks and months to come.
A couple of quick comments. Oh, Alder, please.
I guess I just had a question, two questions. First of all, when I looked at the employers, I didn't see the school district in that list. And I think the school district is a very large employer for the city of Green Bay. And secondly, I think the school district plays another big role in people's decision on whether or not to live in Green Bay. And I'm asking you, Becky, is that correct? That's what realtors seem to tell me at times.
Yes, and we definitely got mixed reviews on that from some people saying, oh, the Green Bay School District is great, that's bringing people here. But then we had other people saying, no, people are moving to other communities to get away from the Green Bay School District.
So that my point would be, I think it's important to work as much as we can in partnership with Green Bay schools and to be able to find out what their celebrations are. So that we can also advertise those celebrations and the things that are going well, which I think impacts on where people decide to live, people with children. So those are just two of the insights that I took away from this study. Thank you.
And Barb, I guess the only thing that I would add to that is if there's a perception out there, we definitely want to bring the Green Bay School District in so that we can change that perception.
Yes.
A couple quick comments. One, first of all, Becky, I really want to compliment you and your team on the ease of reading the report. It's written very, very well, and lots of good graphs and whatever. So it's well done from a readability point of view, and very specific as far as the things that we need to do. It should be easy for us to follow up. Kind of related to that, I think, Cheryl, for the next several meetings, we'll have a standing agenda item about how we are following up on these recommendations. The report is so important and very specific as far as things we need to do. So we'll have a standard agenda item, like I said, for the next several months about how we are doing in regard to these strategies. Other than that, well done. And it's very clear as far as the things we got to do. Now we just got to do some of them. That's all. Any other comments, please?
I just think the report, like you said, is very well written, and it really helps us as we go forward to make decisions, for future redevelopment projects. So I agree with getting this on the agenda every month.
On the positive side, there are a number of the suggestions that we are doing to some degree. Neighborhood associations and all that, and our TIFs and our list of properties that we own that we need to get into housing, if you will. So so there's a lot of things that we are doing good or partially doing good. It just needs to be more follow up and specific. That standing committee, that sounds like an interesting establishing the housing committee. Do we have anything like that at all, Cheryl, right now?
Well, we have a number of, there's a lot of committees that are working on housing projects of varied sense, but I don't think we have one committee that's really looking at the big picture of the whole city and how we're all working. So okay. I think that's a new committee that we'll need to form and get the right players at the table. My neighborhood, I'm a neighborhood gal. My roots run deep in neighborhoods, so I'm super excited about the work we can do in Green Bay. in strengthening our neighborhoods and providing a good housing product for the whole spectrum of incomes. So this is very exciting, I think, for our department.
Noel, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of great stuff in here, and obviously I haven't gotten much past the executive summary at this point, but looking at some of this information in here, I think in particular the financing and looking at the role that TIF can play in the Housing Trust Fund and some of those other things is could be profoundly impactful on our housing development here in the community. I do think some of the things could be explored even more deeply. I know this is very focused on housing, but I think that there's other connections, particularly with some of the commercial development in the central city and elsewhere, that might be important to look at as it relates to zoning. In one case in particular, that map of the surface parking in the downtown area is really telling. Part of the reason there's so much surface parking in the downtown area is because our zoning code requires a lot of parking for businesses, even when the business thinks that they can get by just fine without that off-street parking. And I think one of the things we might want to explore is our zoning code as it relates to the demand for paving parking spaces for commercial uses. And maybe that could be scaled back or modified in some way to allow more dense development, not just residentially as we're talking about, but commercially as well. And I think that the suggestion to look at the land use plans around mixed use neighborhoods is really critical. I was giving a tour to a new staff person and driving through Green Bay's neighborhoods and just commenting on the differences in our city to some other cities where you might be driving through a neighborhood and, every corner's got a tavern or a mini mart or a church or some other use. And in our community, we've largely excluded, commercial uses from our residential areas, and healthy neighborhoods, can have a hair salon in them or a dry cleaners or, some other sort of neighborhood, business. And those are the sorts of things that attract people to neighborhoods as well, when they can, say, hey, we can walk down to that restaurant on the corner, or we can do this other thing. And I think especially if we're thinking about taking out some of our housing, or revitalizing some of the older stock, those are things that we could be looking at is can we actually develop some additional commercial inside the fabric of our residential neighborhoods? And I know I've been at plenty of plan commission meetings and council meetings where that very thing has been proposed and it's been a nightmare. But, those are things that I think could be implemented. And so that recommendation to look at the land use planning in the report is, I think, really key and shouldn't be something we shirk, because that's setting a vision for the future fabric of our city. And I think it's really important.
Good.
Thanks.
And just to note, we have our planning staff just worked on changing the downtown parking codes. So we have started some of that, requiring less parking in the urban area. But lots more to go for sure.
Thank you, Chair Delvo. I piggyback a little bit on what Noel just said as well. He and I and Cheryl all worked in the planning office for some time, and so we always dealt with zoning issues, land use issues, comprehensive plan issues, all sorts of things. And I think one thing that I see in Green Bay, many times you have a very heavy industrial area bordered by a residential area, or you have a commercial area bordered by a residential area. So I agree. I grew up in Milwaukee, and Noel is right about that. I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods that I lived in or was part of that had some of those little commercial uses. So I think that's something to look at. And I have another agenda item coming up, and I can talk more about that. But I've talked to Director Rainier Wig about this as well. And I think there are some very good points that we can move forward on. But I think zoning is a big one. How we zone or rezone or be proactive and look to the future so that we can make some good decisions and not react, but be proactive. So, thank you.
Very good. Noel, please. Oh, you might be. Oh, you didn't? Okay, sorry. Any other questions for Becky? If not, we'll go back to regular order of business, please.
Move to return to regular order of business.
Olderdorf,
Second.
second by Kathy. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. So we're back to regular order of business. So
I'd like to move to approve the study and pass this on to council.
Olderdorf made a motion,
I'll second.
second by Kathy. Any other questions or comments in regard to the motion? We're basically accepting the report, passing it on to council. Just one quick comment before I ask for the vote. You know, it is a very good report, but it's only going to be as good as our follow-up. In other words, how well we follow up on the recommendations. And so that's going to be critical. That's why I'm saying it's going to be a standard agenda item for the next several months to see how we're doing in regard to follow-up. All those in favor of the motion, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent job. Great
Nice job.
by everybody. A lot of good input. Excellent input. Some of those comments in the back are quite interesting, to say the least. All right. Agenda item number 12. Thank you, Becky. Super job. Number 12, consideration of possible action on communication from Alder Store, District 10, to involve city staff, apartment owners, apartment renters, apartment association owners, and other housing-related entities to work on and create a city housing ordinance that will work for owner and renter alike with possible action. Mark.
You want me to proceed here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Alderdorf had brought up the human rights ordinance some time ago, and housing was part of that. And over the last couple of weeks, the housing end of it was kind of taken out of that ordinance and tried to be looked at as a standalone item. So with that being said, myself and Alder Stevens have expressed an interest to do research or be part of a larger group, represent council, but also to have anybody else involved as well. We've talked to the Brown County Home Builders. We've talked to Wisconsin Apartment Association on our own. And I know that Director Renier Wigg has also talked to a number of folks as well. So in fact, I had a nice conversation with her today, and she can kind of go over that as well. I guess all I'm trying to say is that I know Alder Stevens is committed as well. He can speak on it as well, but he owns or runs a large apartment complex, and he has all sorts of insights as far as rentals and housing and all sorts of aspects that go with that. So I guess I'm just saying that I'm here to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So with that, I mean, I'd like other people to chime in as well, and Director Renier Wigg can talk about that as well.
So when working with the Equal Rights Ordinance passage through council, one of the elements that was pulled from that ordinance was the ability to, as a landlord, deny Section 8 housing. So right now, if you're a landlord, you can say, no, I won't accept Section 8 housing. And that was a point of contention on both sides and how that would work. And for good reasons, I think it was removed from the ordinance in that there can be more work to be done before we take a look at putting it back in the ordinance, let's say. So I spoke with the Brown County Housing Authority and the Apartment Association. We all agree that we can work together as a team to come up with a good way to entice landlords to use this program more, which will allow more folks that need housing, especially affordable housing, have more opportunities to rent in Green Bay. We think we can do that as a group. So we come together with the same concept, the same idea, and we're all on the same page. So I think that's where you're going with Alder Stoyer, is kind of working together with the landlords and have a better relationship between the programs and the landlords and tenants. And we can get a group together to do that. I can get a group together to facilitate that. Part of it needs to be driven by the county as well, because that housing choice voucher program is a county-wide program. So, you know, we'd want that to apply to everyone within the county. But I think the first start is to get everyone at the table and to talk about the issues.
Well, I agree with that. Alder Galvin also mentioned to me that City of Oshkosh has a very good ordinance that he has looked at. So I guess, we can be a leader here, but we can also not reinvent the wheel on some things. So if we find other communities that have done some good things, we can borrow from that as well. So that's it. We're just starting out. So Alder Stevens and I definitely want to be part as far as representing the council. And if there's other voices that want to join in as well, I defer to you, Director Renner Wig, as far as, maybe getting some of these contacts and getting that group together that Beverly talked about, getting a standing house committee or housing committee. I think that, everything that was brought up in that report in the last agenda item was very, very good. I mean, to make good decisions, we need data, we need research, we need some of that in order to make good decisions, and I'm all about that. So I think that's a fantastic first step, and I think that'll help immeasurably.
Alder Stevens, did you want to add anything?
Well, I agree with Alder Stoyer.
Okay. Excellent. I'm not sure we need a motion to go forward.
I think just move to refer to staff.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Alder Lark, you make a motion to
Refer to staff.
Okay. Second by
I'll second that.
Melanie. Excellent. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Excellent job. Sounds like a great initiative. Number 2, consideration of possible action on request by GB Real Estate Investments LLC to obtain a planning option of tax parcel 11-95-A.
So Matt Buchanan will be handling this item.
Matt,
Hello, can you hear me okay?
you bet. Absolutely.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Cross your fingers. Let's try this again. You're looking at a PowerPoint or a skyline?
PowerPoint.
Okay, great. So, we've been approached by Garrett Bader with GB Real Estate Invest regarding our request for a planning option. So we're specifically looking at this parcel. You can see my cursor.
Yes.
11-95A. This is near the southeast corner of Main and Monroe. So just to orient you a little bit, that's where that red box is. So over here we've got Monroe, Main. So we've got Monroe Plaza over here, the library, Green Bay Mural. So it's a pretty small parcel. We 2006, and it's been pretty much a vacant grassland since then. There's really not a lot you can do with it because of its size unless you were to acquire adjacent parcels. It just so happens the parcel right next, the larger one, is actually owned by the city. And Mr. Bader has requested a planning option for that piece as well. So he's considering a potential redevelopment of this corner. EDA did consider that planning option last week and did approve it. So that's moving forward. So now he's coming to the RDA to consider approval for the planning option for that smaller piece. He's looking at a 9-month planning option, which would expire June 30th, with a potential extension for two periods of 6 months upon written approval of RDA. This is a parcel that we because of its size. The parcel next door obviously is in use as a leased parking lot. As you heard from the last presentation, we have a lot of parking lots, and so there's probably a higher and better use here. So staff is recommending approval of this planning option. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do believe Garrett's on the call if you have any questions for him.
Yeah, Garrett. Garrett, you there?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Excellent. So give us an idea what some of the potential development with these two parcels.
Sure, I'll speak briefly because I'm on a construction site right now. It's incredibly windy out today. This could be a combination. This could be office. This could be a little bit of housing. Getting this under control will help flush that out and be able to talk to the adjacent owners and see what can work there. Biggest limiting factor, even combining RDA, EDA, and some smaller parcels around it, is parking. It's a small site, but at least what we can do, hopefully, is put up a nice development, get rid of those billboards finally, reincorporate them elsewhere. That's kind of a side item that we're working, but really enhance that corner.
Okay. And I guess that's the whole idea of a planning option, so that you can investigate and come up with a plan. So we understand that. What would be the earliest you feel you could come back to us with some type of a development?
Well, the reason that the option is because it's a little bit of a question mark, Gary, until I can get in front of some of those other owners, see what their long-term and short-term intentions are. It simply needs some time to kind of flush that out. So looking at it 9 months on the front end, I think it's really a realistic time at this point.
All right. Questions or comments for Garrett?
There's also a billboard on this corner that Garrett's going to need to do some work with the city on figuring out if that can be relocated. There's a lot of moving pieces, I think, with this development, but that's, I think, one of the other reasons we may need some more time.
Kind of related to that, we talked about doing something with the KI. Where's that at, Cheryl?
That is part of this planning option. If we go forward with this, that will be part of the exploration on figuring out if that billboard could be relocated somewhere closer to the KI.
All right. Other questions? Or your Matt or Garrett? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve
Second.
the planning for Green Bay Real Estate Development and for up and through June 30th, 2021.
Excellent. Motion by Kathy, second by Jim. Any questions or comments before we vote?
Aye.
I like the thumbs up. Opposed, so carried. Thank you. Number
Thanks,
3,
guys.
please.
Appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thanks, Garrett.
Good luck,
Go
Garrett.
away, Garrett.
Thank you.
All right, number 3. Consideration with possible action regarding request by Alder Johnson, District 9, to initiate negotiation the purchase of 2350 East Mason Street, aka East Town Mall. We'll probably want to go, I think, right into closed session unless somebody wants to make a comment before we do that.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Second.
Read the language.
Oberdorf, second by Kathy. Roll call, please.
Should I read the language first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Read the language
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Yes.
The authority may, pursuant to section 19.851 Wisconsin statutes, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statute of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. Now we can vote.
Now roll call. Cheryl?
I want to make sure, we'll just start moving folks into the waiting room. Would be great.
I'm waiting for the motion to pass, and then I'll begin the process.
All right. So do we do the roll call?
It's roll
Okay,
call.
roll call. Gary Delvo,
Yes.
Matt Schuler,
Yes.
Alder Barb Dorf,
Yes.
Jim Bloomreich,
Yes.
Debbie Dean,
Yes.
Kathy Hinkfist, and
Yes.
Melanie Parma.
Yes.
So you better listen.
Not just one, that was the entire department. They're not messing around.
There's the law department now on Can't.
My internet is not stable when I have the video, so I never have it on. Sorry about that.
All right, so Will, let me know when you've got everyone back in. Okay, everyone is in. So I'll take the roll call. Chair Gary Delvo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Matt Schuler,
Here.
Alder Bob Dorf,
Yes.
Jim Bloomreich,
Yes.
Debbie Dean,
Yes.
Kathy Hinkfest, and Melanie Parma.
Here.
All present, Chair.
All right, we're back in open session, and I think we're going to entertain a motion in regard to the
Yes.
town mall. Who wants to Matt, want to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we, kind of just stand firm and we not make any active purchase movement on the East Town Mall.
Okay. There's a second.
I'll second.
Second by Melanie. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, someone saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. I'm just gonna make the reason the RDA in closed session, we talked about that there's actually private developers that are interested in this property, so it's another reason why we then feel that we need to be part of the mix. It also had minimal stormwater mitigation that could come out of this, and also to be detrimental to TID 9 as far as taking that property out of that TID. We say we're not going to move forward with the East Town Mall.
It's TID, that's TID 19 to clarify.
Oh, I'm sorry, TID 19. I thought you said 9. Okay.
I think
TID.
someone said 9, but it's 19, I believe.
Okay. Before we leave this point, though, I do want a special thanks to Alderman Brian Johnson in an effort to address a couple of our city challenges, and that's the housing and stormwater management. So I appreciate very much Alderman Johnson for those efforts. Number, if I'm agenda here, I'll just in the. Oh, hang on. Oh, it's coming. All my notes here. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Number 4, action to deed 503 South Ashland Avenue, tax parcel 2-275 to the city of Green Bay for purposes of providing an easement to CN Railroad for the installation of railroad signal equipment. Who's got that?
All right, that would be me. So this property we purchased, it was part of a multi-purchase. We had gotten a number of parcels. It was a really bad house there that we wanted to remove, so we took that out. We knew this parcel was a difficult parcel to build on due to the fact that it's in the floodplain and it's right next to the railroad tracks. So we were approached, probably Public Works was approached with the DOT and CN Railroad to put a signal on this site because it's right next to the railroad. So right now it's owned by the RDA. Really, Public Works is the group that works with the railroad and the DOT. So they thought it would be better if the RDA deeds the property over to the city, so the city then can work with the railroad and the DOT. This went through Improvement and Services Committee, and then it went through Council as well for this project. And there were some conditions placed on this transfer. They included a meeting being held with city staff and the railroad to discuss things like that area under the Ashland Street Bridge, right? That's kind of vacant. Maintenance of those railroad areas, also railroad crossings, and there was also some special assessments that need to be paid on this property. So at this point, I think it's okay for the RDA to just transfer this over to the city, and then we'll work with that to get that meeting together with the railroad to work out some of those issues.
Okay. Sounds pretty clear cut.
Approve.
Alder
Move to approve.
Second by Debbie. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, consideration of possible action to approve the updated home improvement loan programs, policies, and procedures.
All right, Krista Cisneros is going to be handling that.
Yep. Hi, all. Good afternoon. This is a follow-up item to our May HUD monitoring for our home improvement loan program. There are a few findings.
Ooh.
Okay, she's breaking up.
We were missing some of the HUD 2013 home program final rule requirements in there. So I made the changes that they had recommended. I highlighted them in yellow, and we will be submitting that to HUD for the follow-up on our monitoring and the close.
I looked at the highlighted changes, and I certainly didn't have any questions or comments. Debbie, please.
Who will do the environmentals?
The environmentals, I mean, I think we're working with NeighborWorks to do some environmentals on this HILP program. We also have an internal staff person, our planning staff person, who is doing the HUD environmental work. I mean, there's lead abatement work, and then there's our HUD environmental. So that will be one of our planning staff who will be doing that. So really, this is just, these are changes that HUD had asked us to make to our procedures manual that you saw in the yellow.
Yeah, I knew that Kevin had done the HUD environmentals prior, so I was wondering how that was going to be done. Okay.
Yep, we actually have a staff person that's that had some environmental experience and is learning the HUD process.
Thank you.
Did everybody have a chance to look at those changes? I guess. Did they have any questions or comments? Yeah, I think you're gonna make a motion. Maybe not.
I'll make a motion that we approve the updated home improvement loan program policies and procedural manual.
Kathy, motion by Kathy, second by?
I'll second that.
Melanie, I think I heard Melanie.
Melanie beat me to it.
Yeah, Melanie beat you to it. Any questions or comments to the motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 6, consideration of possible action regarding request by allocate $136,000 in federal care CDBG-CV funds from the Green Bay Conservation Corps to the homeless. Who will administer this, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so just as some introductory comments, I want to thank staff and RDA and council for approving this initial allocation. Unfortunately, with the Green Bay Conservation Corps itself, we ran into a little bit of a wall with red tape at the federal level. I think there is a real need for direct employment that would benefit our citizens and benefit our city. But as a result of how those rules are written, it became apparent that it was going to be difficult to administer something like that. Now, unfortunately, we have a huge need in our community with regard to providing homelessness services to members who are in a really dire position that has been exacerbated by COVID, which is forcing our homeless shelters to enforce distancing to keep everybody safe. And so we believe that there's an enhanced need for some federal dollars to flow to those entities to provide really critical services as we move into our colder months here. So this was the from my perspective, after talking with staff, understanding the difficulty of doing that direct employment and understanding that we have some significant needs within our homeless population.
So as far as administering the funds, they'd be administered themselves.
Chair, we have an RFP out right now asking agencies to submit proposals for $80,000. That's already out there. What we'd like to do is add this $136,000 onto that RFP. So this money would be administered by housing agencies within the city. They'd make an application for the dollars, and then we'd make that approval through the RDA.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
So it's just moving more money into that RFP to provide homelessness assistance.
Right.
We approve and recommend the reallocation of the $136,000 from the federal CARES funds from the Conservation Corps to homelessness assistance programs.
Second.
Second by Alder Dorp. Motion made by Matt and second by Alderdorf in regard to the moving of the funds from the federal CARES Green Bay Conservation Corps to the homeless assistance programs. Questions or comments? All those saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 7, consideration of communication from Alder Worry to reallocate $20,000 in federal CARES CDBG-CV funds from administration to business improvement district events. Cheryl?
So this is kind of another move. At the council level, I believe Alder Weary pulled the money out in hopes of using it for elections. But the city received a grant to help out with the elections, so that $20,000 really is not needed for elections. Okay. So his request is really, let's move it back into the bids because they need it as well. So right. We agree with that. We'll move it back into the bids.
Okay.
Second.
Alderdorf. Who made the motion?
Alderdorf.
Thank you. And second by Kathy. Questions or comments?
I just wanted to say we're still waiting on feedback on the use of those funds. I don't know where the status of that is.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think Krista and Will are working on that.
All right.
Nope. Yes. Leah, we'll get back to you on that.
Am I coming through?
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. So Leah, we created, Krista and I created an application specifically just for the bids that is being reviewed right now, and our hopes is to get it out to the bids this Friday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a motion and a second in regard to moving the $20,000 from administrative to business improvement district events. Questions or comments? If not, we shall vote. All those in favor, saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 8, consideration of possible action on request from On Broadway to allow RDA staff the ability to approve CDBG eligible expenses using the $52,095 of funds designated for Broadway initiatives. Give us a little background on that.
So remember we sold that parking lot, which brought $60,000 of funding back to the RDA. And
Yes.
then the RDA designated, okay, that money, let's earmark that money for improvements along Broadway. So the request came in from Executive Director Brian Johnson, different hat, right? In that On Broadway is really, of course, one of the bids that is struggling right now. They get a lot of their revenue off of events. And so they really took a hit this year. And his request is that in order to move some of this money faster, get it out quicker, he's really asking the RDA to allow staff to approve eligible block grant expenses using that pool of money and get it out the door faster. So it's really instead of having to come back to the RDA for every request that's made, right. You would give staff the ability to make that determination and then just report out at the next meeting. And so Brian Johnson is here too, if you want to add something to that.
Brian? Uh-oh. Maybe he's not here.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
I see him somewhere.
Yeah. So to Cheryl's point, we've come before you previously and had received a number of authorizations, but we'd come to you and say, this is what we're looking to do with it, and then get that authorization before we'd spend it. But obviously recognizing the impacts of COVID have been very significant on the Broadway bid because our bid doesn't generate as much income as the other bids. So it puts us in a little bit more challenging position in terms of our dependence on event revenue to cover a lot of the improvements that we make in the district. So to Cheryl's point, we're just looking for the ability to make those decisions a little bit more quickly at the staff level.
Cheryl, you're comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable. We, as staff, we've been working with these programs. If there was anything that was questionable, I'd want to bring it to the RDA. But if it's, standard things that we've approved in the past, I would be okay with that.
All right.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the first motion?
Alderdorf.
Alderdorf. Okay. And second by Kathy? I believe. I'm sorry, I wasn't watching close enough.
Matt definitely
Matt.
did, Gary.
Okay, Matt.
I was going to say,
Alder
wasn't me.
Dorf, and second by Matt. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 9, consideration of possible action to approve the hiring of Berner Schober Associates to do audio and lighting design work for KI Convention Center and go out for bid.
Okay, Stephanie Schmutzer, I think, is going to talk about this. She's our KI liaison.
How you
Go
doing,
ahead,
Stephanie?
Steph.
I'm doing good. So what this is we had looked at a lot of our capital projects that need to be done. And one of the more urgent needs that the Hyatt had identified was the light. And right now their audio equipment does not work all the time. It works sporadically at best. But this is right now, since they are down, not having a lot of events due to COVID, this seemed like the perfect time to go through and do a big project like this. It is quite an extensive project. It's redoing a lot of the lighting throughout the KI that is not currently LED lighting, and therefore it's not very energy efficient. And then updating in all of those breakout rooms, the audio equipment, so that they can have their events when they're back up and running be more efficient, better quality events. That was a lot of comments that they had gotten before with events, was that, you know, the audio equipment had issues. So this will make us more sellable for those events, to say that we have, you know, new equipment, you know, and everything like that. So it is an investment, but I think it would be an investment that would very much pay off in the long run.
Do you have any roundhouse numbers as far as what it may cost us for Berners and Schober, and also roundhouse what the audio and lighting equipment would be? I mean,
yeah,
go ahead, please.
In the report, actually, we've been working with DPW on this. They had, I believe it was $38,000 to $40,000
$38,000 to $45,000 for.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then this
by the
project,
hour.
I mean,
so
in this project, since you're all sitting, will be good. It could be a $500,000 project. So it's a very extensive project. But in order for us to stay competitive at the KI, we definitely need to have that technology updated within the KI, the older section, because people are wanting audio visual types of things. And it's a good opportunity for us to do those things now while it's slow for them, because things are going to pick up next year.
So let's hope so. So right now, all we're approving is the hiring of Burns and Schober Associates to come up with the bids, and then once we get the bids, that'd be a second decision.
Correct. We'd have to bring that back to the RDA for approval.
Right.
Gary, just be wise. You're now noticing Cheryl's method of operating with us. She warms us up with the $40,000 to $45,000. This is what it'll take to design it, but there's $500,000 coming. So we're getting wise to you, Cheryl. We're starting to see your strategy.
How many years has it taken, Matt?
Well, you've only had that chair now for a couple months, you know, right? So we didn't see the funding side of you as much.
That's true. That's true.
Well,
thank you, everybody. I gotta leave. Bye-bye.
Bye, Deb.
Hi, Debbie.
Bye, Deb.
We still got a quorum? Yes, we do.
Yeah, you do.
I'd make the motion
before I left.
Gary, that we approve using Berner Schober and Associates for the design and bid work for the KI Convention Center lighting and audio video project.
It sounds like it's critical for us to continue to be, for the KI to be competitive, that we need to be latest technology, if you will.
Absolutely.
Motion by Matt and second by?
Second by Alderdorf.
Alderdorf. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
Can I ask a question?
Melanie, please.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So my only question is, I don't know what your overall process is in getting the bids from Berners. I'm assuming that you have some sort of agreement with them, kind of a long-term agreement. And did you only get a bid from Berners to do this?
The city actually has BSA under contract.
Okay.
Right now. So we're working with them through our city contract through Public Works.
And I know that this letter is not a contract. I would assume that then the city would go into contract and that they would have a not to exceed amount. You know, they say the 38 to 45. I just wouldn't want it to get to, 50, 55, right?
Yep. We can certainly, I can check with that with Public Works on what the contracts, but we can put the not to exceed 45 if you'd like us to.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it's a good catch.
Melanie knows the tricks of those architectural firms.
Yes.
To the trade.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, sing by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 10, consideration of possible action on commercial facade improvement grant funds to Kimberly Glover for enhancements to 1342 South Broadway, tax parcel 1-914. Yes,
Matt Buchanan's on board for this one.
Matt.
Let me pull up some pretty pictures. All right, are you looking at the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. All right, so we've received a facade grant application for 1342 South Broadway. You might know it as the Packer Stadium Lounge.
Well,
So it's on the corner of 10th Street and South Broadway. This is what it looks like today.
oh,
Oh,
And this is what they are proposing. So they are proposing installing new windows, new brick, and new metal siding, also new doorways. The design was actually inspired by Lambeau Field, which makes sense. It's the Packer Stadium Lounge. So that's kind of their inspiration, the direction that they're going. It's a pretty large project. They're estimating over $100,000. I wish we had more money to give. We've got about $15,000 left for our funding for this year. Our design review team did work closely with this applicant. After scoring the project, the design review team's recommending we spend down our remaining funds for this year and award a grant of $15,000. This would be contingent upon the successful completion of our HUD environmental review. These are HUD dollars, so of course we need to complete that environmental review process, which is currently underway. This is out of the floodplain. We don't anticipate that coming back with any issues, but once we finalize that, staff would be ready to move forward with the grant. Do you have any questions?
this is typically a matching grant, right? I mean, we're
yes, in the past, we have required at least a 25% match. Just this past year, you might remember we did change our program around where we're no longer requiring a certain dollar amount or percentage match. We're requiring that the labor costs be covered by the building owner or the applicant, and that we would fund the material costs.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure they have some skin in the game, that's all.
Oh, yes.
All right. It's still going to be called the Stadium Bar or whatever it is?
As far as I know, they haven't mentioned any name changes to us.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, a motion in regard to the commercial facade improvement grant.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 15,000 grant for the commercial facade grant to Kimberly Glover, contingent upon successful completion of the HUD environmental review process.
Okay.
I'll second.
A second by Melanie. A motion by Kathy, second by Melanie. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, sing by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 11. Thanks, Matt. Number 11, consideration of possible action and final payment for Martell Construction for work done on contract CD 19-01, Part A, sidewalk and pavement repair. A deal, I'm sure.
This is just our final payment on our sidewalk, our annual block grant sidewalk contract.
Right.
Move to approve?
Motion to approve.
Oh, good.
Or second.
Second, I'll second that, Melanie.
Melanie made the motion to approve. Alderdorf, second. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks. Wow, lengthy meeting, guys. Thanks for a lot of hard work. Informational. replacement of the skylight at the KICC. I signed the contract today.
I think that's Stephanie.
Yep. This was a item that needed to be taken care of a little bit faster because the lead time for this was 4 to 8 weeks just to get the materials in. So we needed to move a little bit faster, and the amount was $16,945 from the only construction company that got back to DPW on this. So Cheryl had the ability to approve this, seeing as we were looking at 4 to 8 weeks lead time, and we were trying to get this done before winter. What this is this is the skylight, or it's a glass overhang that is between the old rotunda and the new one across the street. There used to be a door in the old one that they took out the door, but the glass overhang is still there.
Okay.
So, and it's not in great shape, so we needed to order that replacement section expeditiously.
That's fine, thank you. I had no questions on the financial report or check register. Director's report, project updates.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that we continue to work with Merge at the shipyard and Gorman at Monroe on development agreements. I'm hoping to get those back and to you before the end of the year. Hopefully November would be great. And we are actually starting second round interviews for the director position. That'll happen at the end of October. We have 2 candidates we're very excited about.
How about Ken's job? Real estate.
So hopefully we'll move quickly on those. And Ken's job, we just put the rec out for that. So we'll be looking to hire that one soon, hopefully.
Okay.
We haven't started that one yet. That one we held for a little while, but but that one we'll have that filled before the end of the year as well.
Did anybody have any questions for staff? Or Mr. Mayor, are you still there? We might have left him.
Yes,
Okay.
I am. Just
there he is.
He's here.
eating a sub sandwich, so I apologize.
I want to eat.
Magic.
Yeah, no, I would just echo what Gerald said in terms of those the term sheets that we hope to turn into development agreements in the near future with both Merge and with Gorman. I'm looking forward to getting those done by the end of the year, and looking forward to the final round of interviews. As Cheryl said, I think everybody's pretty pleased with the finalist. So hopefully we'll get somebody in place in the near future to lighten the load for the team at Community Economic Development, because I know a lot of them are putting in a lot of long hours to keep up with all the demand for their, which is a good thing. But I know it can be tough too. So appreciate all that.
I know you and I talked briefly about summer. We may need to have a special meeting down the line in regard to Polium. So I assume you guys are making progress with the negotiations?
Yeah, talking frequently with county exec and his team on the county side of things, hoping to put something in place as quickly as possible. So we will certainly report back if there's any news to report. Okay.
I just want to make a quick comment. It's very refreshing to see how well you and the county exec are working together. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
Motion to adjourn, unless somebody else has questions or comments.
Move to adjourn.
Hold the door. Melanie. I got Melanie in there. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned. Very busy meeting. Accomplished a lot.